What up, everybody?
Hello.
Welcome. Focus Friday, summer edition. A little bit late. Had a few technical difficulties, and it's kind of the way this thing goes sometimes. So, excuse us for that. Excuse me specifically. Usually, our favorite Jamaica Miles is here to help run all this tech stuff, and I'm like kind of just catching up. But we here right now with 723. We in the summer. We with my good brother Lameek Taylor, one of the most remarkable individuals I know and have met in the last several years, putting in that work up here in the capital region and beyond. Right now, you out in Albany. I'm here in Schenectady, repping the whole capital region. And it's Black August. You hear me? It's Black August, y'all. It's Black August. And we're going to have a discussion right now on one of the pillars of Black August, which is study, the importance of education and the importance of being disciplined in that education. We've already talked about Black August on several times this month. We just had a really dope session with some individuals on Tuesday talking about Black August and the importance of studying, training the mind, looking at history to really understand where we are today and where we're going. No videos today, none of that. It's just a straight conversation between me and the brother. My brother, Lameek, how's it going, man?
Hello. Pleasure to be here. Honor to be here. How you doing, bro?
I'm doing good, man. I'm be honest with you, I'm a little frustrated with the tech difficulties. I ain't gonna hold you. I had me tight. I was over here
That's
like,
all right.
I'm trying to connect everything and yeah, it just wasn't working, man. It was really aggravated. But you know what? Here we are, right? It's summertime. Um, and like I got a couple questions for you, brother, because you're a very disciplined brother. You take education very seriously, and education has
Yeah,
impacted your life, right?
definitely.
Um, so tell me a little bit about yourself. Like, tell the people about who you are, Cook, what you up to, and then we're gonna get into discussion about education.
Um, my name is Lameek Taylor. Hello, everyone. Born and raised in Albany. I'm currently a senior technical assistance and training specialist with the New York State Youth Justice Institute. And on my off days, part-time days, I do restorative justice peer work with an organization called Urban Grief. And you said, what else to tell you?
Nah, that's it. You saying it just like who you are.
Um,
That's it.
yeah,
That's
that's who
it.
I
Most
am,
important.
man. On the side of that, I'm also a student in the MBA in sustainability program at Bard College. So
Man, that's a whole lot, homie. Like
definitely
you working
is
with
study,
YJI, you
study,
working with
study.
everybody know Lisa Good and the work she does with Urban Grief,
Definitely wonderful people.
and you studying for your your MBA,
Right,
right?
right.
You enrolling this year, this semester coming up,
Yes. Just
right?
finished my summer classes, my prerequisites, and gearing up to start the fall semester at the end of this month.
All right. So let's have this conversation, man. So just a quick recap. Black August. It's a month to commemorate our freedom fighters from behind the wall and beyond. It started with kind of acknowledging, commemorating a special brother named George Jackson, but not just him. It was the whole Soledad brothers and his brother Jonathan Jackson, who was murdered in 1970, August 7th, 1970, and George was murdered August 21st, 1971. And brothers in San Quentin got together and decided to put down kind of like the principles these brothers had and the principles for freedom, right? For our people, for our community, and it expanded beyond the wall to impact so many communities throughout the United States. And it encompasses so many different aspects of study, train, fight, and fast. A whole lot of things happen in August. So let's talk about education, right? Tell me in your words, what is the importance of education? What does education even mean, and why should folks be paying more closely attention to what it is to actually study and train?
Um, to be honest, education for me revolves around the ability to connect with someone and understand the dynamics of, you know, where you both come from historically, not only as individuals but as a collective, and the possibility of where you could go in the future. But in the same time, I guess it involves a critical level of understanding, right? Not only the dynamics of your environment, but the potential and ability of you as an individual to learn and grow and develop. Um, so, education was something that was instilled in me as a child. My mother stressed the importance of education in school, out of school, and it was something that she was very adamant about, going over ABCs, making sure we could count, reading, spelling, and it's just something that stuck with me as I grew up and began to get older. But as a people, I feel like education is important because if we don't really know exactly what we've been through and how the dynamics of that have changed throughout history, then we're kind of blinded in regards to where we could go and the things we can do in the moment here and now to help other individuals understand the importance of what they need to know. So,
Mhm. So I feel like we're talking about there's a couple of different things in what you said, right?
okay,
There's different forms of education, right? You got reading, math, and arithmetic, which are some basic things that you need in your day to day life. I mean, I would say you need all of this in your day to day life, but it's a different form of education, right?
right,
And then you have an education that's about looking back and looking through history, and kind of uncovering the truth,
right,
seeing the patterns and seeing how things happen, or how things came to be. That's one thing that's always been like really interesting to me, or curious to me, is how things happened, right? Like how did how were cars invented? What was that like? What was motorcycles like? What was how did why do we dress the way we dress today versus when,
right,
what I mean, what it was in the past? And I've taken that curiosity, I mean, a whole lot of to a whole lot of different levels, right? And just looking at how our societies came to be, and that happened with being in college and studying philosophy, and like looking at the making of societies, right? Like me and you both read the Republic,
right,
Plato's Republic, for me that book was special in that it's such an old book, right? It's thousands of years old, but it actually connected to me, like, to what societies look like today and the thoughts that we have about societies and what power looks like, right? I'm only using that book as an example
no,
because
yeah, I
I read
definitely,
that, and so it's like without an education, right? And I think that's important to define what we mean by education, because we have been educated,
right,
right? Education doesn't just happen in the classroom, right?
it doesn't,
Education doesn't happen in school, but it happens right in our communities, happens in our families, it happens in our day to day interactions with those in our neighborhood. We are, as we're growing up, we're always learning, and when we're older, we're still learning based on what's around us, right? And I feel like we have as a community, have, and I can speak for myself as well in that coming up, I was kind of there was a veil
mm,
between what I know now and what I knew then,
right.
right? And piercing that veil took some real discipline
So
and like deep seeking, right?
the same for me. I'm not gonna lie because let's just think about right, um, being a system impacted person and not really understanding the magnitude of the phrase "know your rights," right? And being
Yeah,
on the end of the spectrum where the only time you really understand or come in contact with the phrase "know your rights" is when an officer arrests you, right?
yeah,
So for
yeah.
me, that deep seeking kind of like to understand, what the amendments are, what I actually have a right to, and rights that, you know, couldn't be violated or were not supposed to be violated in essence, right? That's also education. And I think that something else that you pointed out is that in a process, it takes a deep level of critical seeking to get that level of self-education, right? Because not
Yeah.
only do you have to know or understand the importance of what's around you and the history around you, you also have to understand, your knowledge of self, right? What
Mm.
you're capable of, how you feel about certain things, why your thoughts are a certain way, your influences and your inspirations, what makes you happy, sad. That's also a form of education, right? So, as you said before, there are various levels of education, and I think that it's important, especially as it relates to Black August and, you know, what we've been through as Black and brown people, that we take heed and understand and value those various forms of education, whether they're immersed or seated in culture, the music we listen to, how we dress, whether it's oriented around the food we eat, or how our mothers play music on Sundays when it's time to clean up. Everything is an educational process and something to learn, and gives us an advantage of understanding who we are as individuals and as a collective. So I think that you pointed out some good things.
Yeah, I think you pointed out some good things, right? So, so knowledge is knowledge. The common phrase is knowledge is power.
Right.
I think that more and more people are coming to the understanding that it's not knowledge that's power; it's knowledge and action that's
Mm-hmm.
power. It's like when you utilize that knowledge that makes you powerful. Uh, I want to, you know, when I think about so the whole purpose of what we're doing right now, bro, is like we want to have this discussion to kind of elevate what Black August is and the importance of the different pillars that come from that, right? And we want to raise awareness, but we also want to activate people,
Right.
right? We also want to activate people. Today, I had an opportunity to hang out with Gordon, my brother Gordon Davis, our brother Gordon Davis, and who works for Snug, and it was Snug Day in the park up at 518 Snug Day up at Washington Park. Got a chance to talk to a lot of people. Talk to this young sister, right? She's just graduated high school and is wants to go into nursing, right? And when I got to talk more deeply to her, she said, "Yo, I really want to be a heart surgeon. Like
Mm.
I've always wanted. Like that was something that I always wanted to do." And I asked her, I was like, "Yo, why?" I was like, "Oh, why are you going to be a nurse?" "Oh, well, because people tell me that this make like for if I want to make money and I don't want to spend all my time going to school, I could do this and just make a bunch of money." And she's being influenced. So she's got a desire and a passion to do something, and she's got a circle of people influencing her in the other direction, right? Telling her not to do something, right? I'm very proud of the sister that she wants to go on and continue school and get an education and do some work in the medical field. But the fact that even still, people around her are like placing their limitations on her, right? Saying that
Right.
what she can, what she should do, and how she should do it. And like after, I'm thankful. I don't know if it's really gonna change her mind, but after the conversation we had, she's like, "Yo, I want to follow up." She's gonna talk more with Jamaica, have a conversation with her, and like really think about what it means to continue on and like really achieve the goals that she's so passionate about. She said she always wanted to do it, and I'm bringing that up to talk about once again education, not just being in the school building, but you're being taught by your peers,
Right.
right? And that's the importance of the circles you're around. So how do we? I guess I mean you can like say something about that story, but I'm like, how do we activate our community to like really go forward and achieve as much as they can? Like go forward, like the sky's the limit. Like
Um, that's a good question. For me, I'm all about exposure, right? When we
yeah.
think of like exposure and the fact that a lot of times individuals only gravitate to what's immediately before them, right? It's
Yeah.
what they constantly have access to. It's what's most easily accessible, right? So that level of information sometimes can often get recycled to such a point where, you know, people only see that as what lies before them. They only see that window of opportunity. So I know for me, like, it's exposure and conversations like these and
Yeah.
moments like these where we create these spaces and have these conversations to develop that dialogue that then allows us to push a little bit further. um so, you know, there's a level of, you know, what you go out and seek, because that's what's immediately before you. So if everyone around you is telling you something, ultimately at some point, you're, not everyone, but some people will take that as true, and just that's
And that's
ultimate
their reality. Yeah.
fact, and that's the
Yeah.
reality, right?
Yeah.
So what I say exposure, to get back to that, is that you initiating that conversation was a first phase of exposure, right? You know, why
Hmm.
do you think like that? Or you always wanted to do this. You're getting into, you know, her thoughts and understanding, right? Her perception, that,
Yeah.
which then allows you to, right, then come back with some information. Well, do you know this is available? And a lot of times people don't know other opportunities that exist because they're so nearsighted by what's around them. But I think that having, information about various scholarships, right, making
Yeah,
money,
yeah,
understanding that it's not just about what's in this moment, but
yeah,
it's understood, right? Because we as a people, you know, these moments are extremely hard for us. There are days when we go through our ups and downs and we go through some of the most traumatic and stressful events. So I understand, and it's it can't be argued against. You understand that people want something instant, that level of instant gratification to help them
yeah,
out, right?
yeah, yeah,
And then historically speaking, is like I don't want to be in a position to where I have to wait so long to get returns on my efforts and actions, right?
yeah, yeah,
So I think that that level of exposure and changing the mindset of, right, you know, perseverance, resilience, but also that determination and not see instant gratification and results, but to take your time and pace yourself and be patient. And knowing, I think what's even more important is the fact that, right, the phrase "I want to make money," right? Um, Within that phrase, I think underlies, you know, a fear, a lack of supportive network systems.
yeah,
And this is
yeah.
where we also, as a people, need to come in together and be able to help one another, guide one another, and uplift one another in various ways and create those bonds that show that, you don't have to worry about right now because you have such a strong support system. And that in the future, in the long run, you're going to get to where you're going to go and you're going to have people to help you get there. You know what I mean? So I think that just exposure and creating these spaces that you're doing right now, especially with these educational uplifts and elevations, I think is important. So, and
Nah,
first and foremost,
yeah,
I think, like you said, just having that conversation to create that dialogue.
yeah, nah, yeah, I think you're right. And I mean, it doesn't happen enough. And like, you got me thinking, like, you know, she's like, "Yo, I gotta go get this money," and I've heard that from
Right,
from a lot of folks, right? And because like it's an immediate need, they're trying to
exactly.
address an immediate need in the distance. Far too often for folks coming from our communities, right, which also sit at the lower economic class, have such a longer, what feels like such a
Right,
longer
right.
distance to
It's looked
go
at as a waste.
than somebody who's coming from a more stable,
Or
financially
yeah,
stable community, right? It's just a little bit different when they're thinking the time feels different. Because when I talk, I say, yeah, maybe studying for 10 years seems like a lot, but you know what I mean? Starting at 18, 19, like you're still in your 20s when you're out. But I
yeah,
just, throwing out
right.
a number and like trying to just break down how special it would be if for her that she kind of like fulfilled her dream because she said it was a dream since she was a little kid. I don't know why I didn't get into all of that, but you got like those are so like being able to acknowledge that right is important. Just understanding what context a person is living in. Because back to like how do you activate people, right?
Right, right, right,
Like
right.
understanding the context that someone is living in and not just like, oh well, you just got to do it this way or that way. You got to
Absolutely.
first kind of understand where a person is coming from, where they're situated, and like think about like what they're passionate about. Because
Exactly.
I see the brother said in the chat. He said, "Let's go, brother Young or brother Taylor. Peace, brother. I can't wait to get you
Right.
on
Yeah,
the
that's a
conversation.
good brother
I'm
right
telling
there.
you, if I was savvy enough with tech, I'd add you right now. But I'm not even gonna mess with it. I might end the whole live. So
That's a good brother
I'm
right there.
gonna let that chill. But just back to the young sister as an example. And I don't want to just stay with her, but that she isn't. There is a within that story. There's a microcosm of experience that a lot of people feel, right, in our communities. And I
Right,
think
right.
like back to like Sayla was like, hey man, like trying to figure out how do you engage people with voter registration? How do you get people interested in voting? How do you know what I mean, get people interested in their own self interest? At least from our perspective, it's like, yo, this is your own stuff. To them, they're like, wait a minute, I'm trying to hustle. I gotta go to work. I gotta take care of my kids. I ain't got time for that. Like that stuff ain't changing. My vote doesn't matter, right? Back to that kind of thing. And I think education impacts what you believe in, right? And what you believe your power is. Because
Exactly.
for me personally, I had no connection to any of this stuff before I deepened my knowledge and understand society a little bit better, right? I ain't have no connection to any of this at all. I mean, that stuff happened over there while I lived in my neighborhoods and did my thing. Like I didn't feel like I had to say so. I mean, and that's oftentimes that's an intentional feel. Like that
Right.
didn't come about just because, right? The context of the environment I grew up in brought that about, brought those feelings about. And I'm trying, and we are all, and Say a lot himself, and my brother Batman, Nightwing, and so many other all the people that I seen doing the work. They're trying to shift that in people. Like, no, it ain't got to be like that.
Definitely. And it's important work, right? And you can see it on a collective scale. Like just look at the changes being made in other areas, like homelessness, mental illness, addiction, right?
Yeah,
Took educational aspects for individuals to begin asking questions to get to the root cause of, all right, addressing how can we best assist people
yeah,
from the perspective of what they need instead of from the outside looking in, trying to give them what we feel they need, right? And that
hmm
level of awareness is important. And I think that's what you did, right? In asking that young woman, why do you feel like that? Why do so questions like that are engaging her perspective and you're hearing her perspective and where she's at, then best allows you to say, all right, get to the root cause of why she feels like that. Something she may be missing that you can put her in the right direction to. And I think
yeah.
that those levels of um, engagement are the best forms of activation because you have that constant dialogue
That's deep.
and
That's
inquiry.
deep. Yeah, that's deep. That's deep. I feel like, damn, that's yeah,
And I
those
think
levels
that
of engagement. But we don't have the problem is that we don't have
right,
the capacity, right?
exactly.
Like it ain't a bunch of Lamiques and Sillars, like it ain't enough of us are black. We don't do it enough in a community to like lift people up when they need it and give them that. I'm not saying it doesn't happen at all. Of course it does, right? In our communities, we ain't so destitute that we don't do that for our own, right?
Right.
That ain't the problem. I mean, the problem is that one, we don't do it enough, and two, we don't the knowledge gap, right? So like, how wait, where do you want to steer a person? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
where are you steering this person? If you don't got the knowledge of where they should go, how you gonna tell them where to go?
that's
You
true.
gonna tell them what you know, right? Even if you're trying to benefit them, right?
I agree. I agree. I think
Yeah.
that I agree with you. I think also just being brave because it just takes us a small mustard seed, is the saying. It takes a small mustard seed sometimes, and just for us to kind of like
Nah,
start,
it's a little
we could
bit.
start like
Yeah.
going in the movement, going into communities, and just having conversations, creating spaces for conversation. It doesn't have to be a direct or focal point of the conversation. We just want to gather people in the same space and spark that conversation so we can get to some things and create that dialogue. But I think you're right about a
I
lot of
mean, I
stuff.
gotta. No, I think I gotta tell you, man. We are living examples of what the power of being driven, committed, and educated does. Right. I'm not tooting my own horn, but I look at you. I look at your brother Daiwan. I look at so many brothers and sisters. Right. Our homegirl Najette is about to pass the bar. Right. Like you know what I mean. My other brother Darnell Epps is it passed the bar at Yale, right? Like we come from some really humble beginnings, some difficult times. We come from a people, the only people in this country ever outlawed from being educated, right? We come from a long history of violence and oppression, but yet we find ways to persevere in like the steps that me and you have taken and like so many others that are starting to take. I feel like can build into the type of momentum that turns into an avalanche. But these conversations got to continue to happen. There's no other platforms. I mean, our brother Angelo Maddox, we shout out to Angelo, man, at Fresh and Fly. I know he's doing his
Definitely big
thing.
shout out,
I
bro.
seen his work. He's got he's definitely having
Focus
some
on movement,
conversations, doing some
mindful
interviews.
movement.
Special shout out to him. But like it ain't enough of these conversations happening, but the ones that are happening, I think we gotta tune in, like listen in, support one another. I mean, it sounds old and cliche, but man, I
Definitely.
mean, it is kind of simple, right? Before I let you go, I just want to read. I see that the brother Salah put in the chat. The detachment from politics is abysmal, but it's by design. To empower a critically thinking electorate is to simply get people engaged in a community. However, what that looks like is at the discretion of the people who champion the movement.
Hmm.
Um, he says because getting people engaged allowed them to see how everything is connected. If people knew more about how everything played a role, I think we'd want to play a role. You got to get the people activated. And he ain't lying. What you say to that?
Definitely got to get the people activated. And I think that, you know, the detachment from politics is by design, right? You keep people so focused on, you know, housing, how they're going to pay the rent, get access to food, the violence in their communities. And as long as people have all of these other things to worry about and deal with, they're
Yeah,
not going to understand the necessary importance of politics and getting up to go out and vote. They're not going to understand the relevance between their power or autonomy and how that autonomy as an individual with just one vote can change the dynamics of their current situation, because the hardships and the pressures and the emotional overwhelming that happens with the immediate environment and their everyday struggles, it restricts their ability to
yeah,
think that far off. And
yeah,
as we said before, right,
yeah.
it's, and as Salah said, it's by design, right? We are going to keep your thoughts, emotions, and feelings occupied with these situations, so you can't necessarily see what's really at stake or how you can even change the circumstances of your condition. And
Yeah.
I think that a lot of points that we said today as a community, right? It looks like us championing the movements and starting conversations and activating people and just kind of like really getting into ourselves and the support that we have to offer to other individuals. Because at times, all it takes is a conversation, and something I say, you say, or Salah might say could spark a whole series of inspirations in individuals. Like, you know what? I could do this, or you know what, he's right. I want to do this, or this is something I wanted to do for a long time. I just needed that little push. So I think that, you know, is there, and it's possible, and we could do it.
I mean, I agree, man. One of the things I say a lot, man, is that, you know, some of the reasons why these things happen are all the things we said. But if I boiled it down to something that's more maybe easier understood, right,
Mm,
without getting into all the dynamics that brought it to life, is that we don't take ownership as a community of our communities and our neighborhoods in a way that I'm talking about in a political ownership. Like understand, like this is ours.
right,
We ain't going nowhere. We've been nearly 500 like 500 years. We ain't going nowhere. These are our communities,
right,
right? Um, we have to taking ownership of it means I care about the politics here. I care about what my roads, what my streets look like. I care about who's like determining where the investments are going, who's doing construction in my community, right? Right? Like this is the summertime, so we see construction everywhere, right? And too oftentimes, we see those construction sites, the people doing the heavy machinery, like everyone's making bread on those jobs, right? Whether they building like a whole new building and construction happening, or the roads, like I said, a lot of money getting paid there. We don't see ourselves reflected on them job sites often. Might be some here or there. You get a couple brothers and sisters working on them sites, but we not there. And like I can remember growing up seeing buildings come down or go up and not knowing, like not having any clue or connection to like why that was happening in my community, right? No one to even really talk to or engage about it. So like once we understand ownership,
mm,
like once we understand like this does belong, like we walk around our communities like we visitors or strangers there, or we don't have any real say so. The police officers come down the block or whoever comes in, and it's like this belongs to them, doesn't belong to us. Now if we on some street turf war, whatever, that's a different topic. That's not what I'm talking about.
right.
I'm talking about really taking ownership, because even those gangsters run off the block when the police come. You dig?
I think
Like
that
it's like, go ahead.
something good that you're saying, I think, is like, you know, the idea of study, right? When we talk about study, it's just not in the books, it's also studying our environment, right? What
Yeah,
it needs, um, the possibility of what we can do, the needs to uplift or activate people. And I think that some of the things you talk about, right, is why we kind of like create spaces to teach youth financial literacy, teach
yeah,
them how to cook, teach them business management, right? Socio emotional learning, dealing with feelings, conflict resolution, and all of these things are forms of study and implementing ways in which we can learn and teach and uplift them to think differently, move differently, and understand the dynamics of what's at stake in the circumstances of their condition.
Mm.
And it's important, man. It's
Nah, it is. It is. And while you're talking about some good stuff because it's like I want to shout out like You Inc. They do a bunch of financial lit stuff in the community. Young Futures, my brother James Mitchell and his crew working with a lot of youth. Obviously, Batman does the same. Salah's got a question. He says, "Do you?" I'm gonna put this up so you can see it. So, do you think it's because some of us are still identifying our politics? What do you think? That question?
So does he mean like some people are just now understanding what politics are and figuring out where they fit in within the realm of politics? I think that's a point that I could
Yeah,
kind
I
of like
think
take
that
from
sounds
that.
right. That sounds
Because
right.
a lot of
Yeah.
politics is so far removed, like the dynamics or importance of voting is not something that's kind of like immediately taught to our communities, right? This takes the people in our communities to expose the individuals in the communities to, the importance of voting, what can happen with voting, and the fact that, voting can change and shift the things that you're going through now. So I think that in the midst of that and disseminating information that's relevant to politics, teaching people, what the parties are, the dynamics of each party, the party values and things of that nature, how often voting occurs, is important. And I think that the fact that, that's starting to gear up and ramp up, I feel like within the past handful of years, it's been starting to gear up. It's always been something historically, especially in our communities, but I feel like, spaces where it's needed most within the last handful of years, it's been starting to gear up. And I think that it's just now taking the forefront of the fight.
I mean, that sounds hopeful. I hope you're right. I really hope that happens. If I'm being honest, I like the idea that the takeaway I had from the question is to me is like, and just I know y'all, some of y'all are tuned in, some of y'all gonna tune in to this later. We're gonna go a little bit longer. We started wild late because of tech difficulties, but this is an interesting, really interesting conversation. And I'll just say like the question to me, Meek, is that like identifying your politics is like kind of understand like so we've been I mean historically we've been screwed over by Republicans, by Democrats. It ain't matter what they call themselves, we'd had issues, right? We haven't always been prioritized, if ever prioritized, or even cared for. Like we can't even get a politician in some of these, especially in these presidential races, to say, "Yeah, I'm doing this for the Black community." Right? They like you got even on my one of my it's my brother and I appreciate him. To me he did a lot of great things, um, but he ain't say yo I'm gonna do this specifically for the people, right? For black people. I'm talking about Obama. Kamala Harris can't say the same thing. None of the presidents ever have, right? While we see other communities, not everyone, right, but we see other communities reaping the benefit of government assistance and an acknowledgement of harms. The Japanese, were treated horribly in the internment camps. Native Americans were almost wiped out in this country. The Jewish community certainly, went through an entire Holocaust. And there's benefits that were reaped from this government because of it, while we, on the other hand, have not. Can you hear me, brother?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, now I hear all right, I got it. Um, but yeah, like this is, I just want to say, man, once again, this has been a really great and Salah staying active in the chat, man. I appreciate you, brother. We've got to do this again. I won't keep you too long. I know you got things to do yourself, but if you got any last comments you want to make, man, about the importance of education, about this conversation, period, about what we're doing moving forward, please share, and then I'll tune off and let you go.
I think my last comments is for anybody interested in networking, connecting, brainstorming to figure out, how we can kind of make a difference in uplifting our communities, but also educating and informing our communities. I'm down to definitely have conversations, create dialogue, or collaborate in some form to make an event happen. Also, for the people listening, just understanding that, you know, what you think or have to say is important in this process as well. Don't ever think that because we are in a space where we're having a conversation that your voice doesn't matter or it's not welcomed.
Yeah.
You know, always remember and keep an open mind and open thoughts, and know that, you know, your voices matter too. And whenever you feel like you have something to say, if you have a response or have input, insight, definitely please feel free to reach out to us and give us your insight and help us in the matter, because, you know, you're a part of this too. So
All right, my brother. I appreciate you, man.
thank
Signing
you
off,
for
man.
having me. I
Yeah,
appreciate you. Thank you for having me anytime, man.
you already
And
know,
Salah,
man.
thank you for your participation and activeness. It's
We gonna
always
get we getting Salah up
It's
here.
always good to see him, man. He's always on the up and up. Every time I see him, he give me that spark of energy that I be needing.
So that's whole facts. We need to do a whole maybe group session, have some conversation for real,
I
for real.
agree. Yeah, I agree.
All right, y'all. We're gonna sign off, man. Focus Friday, summer edition. Y'all stay in good trouble. Appreciate the brother Lameek Taylor. I feel like Salah was a part of this
I know, right? I
conversation.
feel like he was here.
That's a whole
Just had
fact.
the camera on.
I appreciate it. Yeah, he just had his camera off. I
Thank y'all
appreciate
for
you, brother,
listening.
man.
Peace.
Peace. Much love.
Much love.